Hello, my name is Gareth. You're watching the Hub Online Network. We have Patty Kinvig. Is that how I pronounce that?
You betcha.
Awesome. From the Ashcroft Terminal in today. So we're going to talk about everything from the terminal to the Ashcroft Slough Society to the working group that's just been taking place. So let's get to it. Awesome. So Patty, let's talk a little history of the terminal. Why don't we start with just what the terminal is, what the terminal does, and your role in the terminal.
Awesome. The terminal actually did exist before me. It was purchased, it was about 20 years ago that it was purchased by the Ashcroft Terminal. And at that time, it was just a small little one line, very small business going on. Over the years, obviously, we've gone through some major expansion projects. I've worked there now, I'm coming up on 7 years.
Wow.
So, yeah. When I first started there was only probably 5 people working there. We were just a small group. It was a family-run business. We had 6 tracks at the time, just a couple of customers, enough that we were busy, the 5 of us. You did everything from sweeping the floors to going up on site, meeting the train crews. Like, you just did whatever you had to get the job done. Now, fast forward to today, we have 26 tracks. We do all sorts of things on site. We transload all sorts of material. We have railcar storage going on. Our staff has grown significantly. We've gone from, like I said, about 5 people to now we have, I think, 35 people on site here in Ashcroft,
Awesome.
which is awesome. Yeah.
So trains come in, and what do you guys do with the trains?
So Ashcroft Terminal, we often refer to it as like a 3-legged stool. We have 3 pieces to our business. One is transloading. That's our bulk business. So we take things out of rail cars into trucks or out of trucks into rail cars.
Okay.
For multiple different commodities. Then we also have a railcar storage piece where we have rail cars that come in and they're just stored kind of like a parking lot. There's just a lack of railcar storage spots across the country. So customers use us for that. Different lengths of times, sometimes short, sometimes it can be like over a year long projects. And then the third piece is the piece that we're really excited about getting into, and that's the container business. And we were 60% owners of PSA. And so they're one of the largest container port operators in the world. And they saw the value that Ashcroft Terminal has in Canada and in the movement of goods. And so now with them, we have this large container expertise at our fingertips that we're looking at developing our container program.
And you're talking about the containers that would ride on trains.
On chassis, yeah. So domestic in Canada, also coming from overseas into Canada and exporting, importing, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So why Ashcroft?
So Ashcroft, lucky us, we're very unique for a number of reasons. Mainly Ashcroft Terminal, our property, has both main lines running through it. So it's one of the only places that we're aware of that have both main lines. So we have both CP and CN main lines coming through our property. And what that means is that every single container or rail car that has to go to the ports in Vancouver, they have to go through our property. And so all of a sudden that means we can add efficiency to the logistics of goods in Canada.
Okay.
So for example, like right now, you look on the highways, we have loaded lumber trucks, driving down to Vancouver. They have to wait in their line, and down there it's like this big mess. They have to make like 5-6 different stops just to get their products on the correct cars, on the correct ships, and whatever they have to do down there. At the same time, we have the empty rail cars going through our property down to Vancouver, having to do that same movement, so they can get the empty rail car with the loaded trucks to do the transload down there. So you look at Ashcroft Terminal, we have both main lines. We have the empty rail cars, so let's stop the empty rail cars here. Let's bring the loaded trucks here. We can do that transload on our property. We have lots of space. And then the rail cars leave our site ready to go onto the ships. They don't have to do any further movements down in Vancouver. And the trucking all of a sudden we're saving all those truck miles on the highways. So that's the container piece. So for our other bulk business, we're just a really great central location for transloads to occur. Prior to us, we've had customers that have had to drive to Regina to get their product to bring it back to BC. Now we have all the product here and they're coming to us. So we're closer to the producers and we're closer to the people who are using these goods.
How many trains come through on a typical day?
Oh, well, I mean, Ashcroft Terminal, we're serviced once daily from CP Yard in Kamloops. And we're currently working on the development of the CN connection. But in terms of, the amount of mainline trains that go by, I don't even know. I couldn't hazard a guess. I mean, obviously you live in Ashcroft, you get stuck at those crossings all the time. It is a busy corridor. We get lots of traffic on those main lines.
So at this time, you guys you said that you're expanding or you've expanded.
Yeah.
What is your property line now? Like how big has the terminal gotten?
Right, so our property lines haven't changed. Our industrial land, we have 320 acres of industrial land, and
Okay.
then we have a large agricultural piece around the outside that we can't develop, but it's a good natural buffer for our industrial land, which goes obviously, up the mountainside. It's hard to see without having a map in front of us that goes up the mountain, and obviously down to the water, less the high water mark.
Right.
Yeah.
So one of the hang on, let me back up here. What does the agreement look like between you guys and CN and CP? Do you have some kind of safety agreements, liability stuff when they're on your guys' property?
Well, I'm not sure exactly of the agreements. That would be our commercial team that would do that stuff. But at the end of the day, CN and CP both have right-of-ways. They own that on either side of their main line all throughout Canada. I think it's varying degrees, anywhere from 30 feet up to 100 feet.
Oh, wow.
It can be, yeah. I don't know how they make that determination of how big it is, but so they do own a piece of property on either side of the main line, and that's just for their safety, to keep people away from their main lines. And also, obviously, they need access to be able to do work if they have things break down on the railroads or whatever.
So have you guys, in your expansion, my understanding is you're doing a bunch of construction.
Mm-hmm.
Is that for just the container part of the business that you're taking over?
So no, it's not just for the container business. Obviously the big exciting piece for us is that we weren't tied into CN's main line. So all of CN's product that came to our site actually came through Kamloops to CP to our site.
Okay.
But now we're going to have direct access to CN. So now all of a sudden our customers can send us rail cars directly through CN Kamloops to us without having to go to CP and have that weird interchange in Kamloops.
Right. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that has happened recently in Ashcroft is there's a place called the Slough, and
Yes.
it's a contentious topic at the moment in
Yes,
town.
for sure.
But you guys have sought a group of people, and you called it the working group.
That's right.
Can you explain what the working group is?
Right. So, as long as, Ashcroft Terminal has owned the property, and for long as I've lived in Ashcroft, which is now over 10 years, everybody of the slough. And Ashcroft Terminal knows about the slough. They know that it's important to the community. And so as things are changing due to construction, we thought, well, let's create this working group just to get some feedback. And because access to the slough is not an option, to be honest, it was always illegal to get there, right? Just to clarify, we didn't make it illegal now all of a sudden. 20 years ago when they purchased the property, it was illegal. There was a road that went through our property, a private road that went through our property that went to a crossing that people used to get there. At that time, we were so small, we didn't have the resources to have somebody sitting out there tracking people down, making sure people aren't trespassing. And to be honest, we weren't developing that piece of land, so it wasn't something that we were looking at regularly. Now we're developing that piece of land, and we have the resources to say, okay, like, we have to enforce this. It's dangerous. We have heavy rock trucks going. The main line has trains going. Like, it's not safe to have people walking through there. That road is half gone already because we're getting the earth ready to lay rail. And so now what we've done is we've removed the private road that was to their illegal access. So that they can't get to that crossing anymore.
And this is the end of Evans Road.
That's right.
Before it comes into terminal property.
That's right. Yeah. And so we put up a gate there, to signify that this is the start of our private property, and pretty much, you'll see rail tracks even coming out past that onto our property, not onto Evans Road at that point, but on through our property, just because for logistics, those are the type of tracks we need in there. So it'll be a fully functioning rail yard down there.
Are you privy to what the rules are for CN? So before people would go down, they would park their car, they would cross the tracks to go down to the slough. What are the rules for CN for crossing the tracks?
For CN, it's pretty simple. CN and any rail line, so CN or CP, any main line, it is illegal to cross their tracks unless there is a legal crossing. And so we do not have a legal crossing to go down to the slough on our property. We never have, and so we don't currently either. So sorry, to back up, because I sort of got lost there. The Ashcroft Terminal, because we recognize the value of the slough, we put together this working committee thinking, let's get some ideas. Ashcroft Terminal wants to do something for the community. We want to, give back. We want to be good corporate citizens, but it can't be access to the slough because it's just not an option. We have no access through our private property, and CN is not willing to give any legal crossings. So, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Ashcroft Terminal, for safety reasons, for liability, we can't build something on our property to get people down there, and CN is saying, well, we're not letting you do that anyways, so there's no way. So let's look at another way of helping the community out. And so we created this working group. And we had, we put it out to the community, and we asked for people to join. So we had 3 members of the community, we had 3 members of our staff, and then we had a representative. We put it out to both Ashcroft and Bonaparte. Only Bonaparte decided to partake, so we had a member from Bonaparte. Then we also had 1 member from the Ashcroft Council and 1 from Cache Creek Council. And that formed the working group. And then we had a facilitator come in to moderate and lead the discussions. And through that, we came up with some ideas. We talked about, okay, what do people use the slough for? Just to get an idea what kind of activities they're looking at, and then see if there was something else we could do, to replace that access. And at the end of the day, there was 2 main things that came up. That was supporting the village's walking trail path. There's a little bit of, I don't know what the word is that I'm trying to think of, but that program hasn't been adopted by the council yet, so that was, it was still heavily supported, but we'll have to wait obviously for next year for the village's walking trail. But of course, Ashcroft Terminal can on its own, outside of that walking trail, we could perhaps have something. And then the other one was improving the boat launch area. Right. So down by Ashcroft Terminal, just on the other side of the public road, there is a public boat launch down there. And so doing some work to improve that area. And that, of course, would be in conjunction. These would both be in conjunction with the village of Ashcroft.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, because there's only so many people in the working group.
Yeah.
How did it go? Was there any arguing or anything like that, or was everybody pretty civil?
No, I'd have to say that everybody was very respectful of. Obviously different opinions around the table, but everybody was very respectful. There was we had no issues at all in that regard. Obviously, we did come to a consensus on those 2 being our options, and with obviously the understanding that we had some community members that were part of this Ashcroft Slough Society, and that they're going to do their thing separate from the working group. Because the working group, was not to get access to the slough. The working group was to look at ideas for alternatives than going to the slough.
Okay. So that was even for myself, that was a miscommunication. Because my understanding was it was to,
Find an alternative access to the slough?
or, like it was both.
Oh, yeah.
It was.
Yeah, and then I guess the communication is that it was intended, and which we did clarify at the start of our meeting, because there seemed to be a bit of confusion, that the intent of the working group was not to find access to the slough. It was to look at alternatives. We wanted to recognize and understand the significance of it, but then look at what else we can do besides finding access to the slough.
Right. What is the potential time frame, not necessarily for the path, but for the boat launch, do you think?
So these are things that we're just, as a group, signing off and approving what our recommendations are, which will be brought forward to Ashcroft Terminal.
Okay.
Of course, then that goes, we'll bring it forward to the larger group of Ashcroft Terminal, who will then have a look at and see. They'll probably make contact with the village, and they'll have to make some plans. And so there's no set timeline yet for that.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Sorry, I do this about once a show. I just have a moment.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's change gears now to the Ashcroft Slough Society. So, at this moment in time, the terminal is okay. The terminal property, does it go on both sides of the tracks? Now this is the CN tracks that follow
track.
along
Right.
Evans Road,
Yep.
where your guys' gate is.
Yes.
Does your property go on up to the tracks, and then
And
the
go-
CN has the tracks,
Yep.
and then over?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so Ashcroft Terminal owns that whole piece, except for below the average high water mark.
Okay.
So, I mean, you can get maps, and I think the CBC article had shared the map of our property that shows which piece of property are ours, because there is that little piece that's below the high water mark that we don't own.
Mm-hmm.
But everything else we do own, less the CN's right of way.
So one word that keeps coming up when I talk to people about this stuff is liability.
Mm-hmm.
So just as an example, someone is on that side of the property.
Yeah.
Someone falls and breaks their leg,
Yeah.
decides to sue the terminal
Right.
because the terminal, whatever, they're on the land. What does that look like? What would that?
So, unfortunately, a number of years ago, we actually had a death on the other side of the tracks on our property. A gentleman decided to trespass across our property, and he had built himself a little shelter there, and he ended up, there was an explosion, and he ended up passing away from that. And so we know how dangerous things can be, because then you look at all of our first responders that have to attend. Like, all of these people then are dealing with having to cross the main line. And crossing the main line is illegal. There's mainline trains. Mainline trains don't care if we've had an explosion on the other side of the property, if they don't even know, unless it's that big, obviously, that it's impacting the railroads. So we're putting not only like that person's life at risk, but we're putting our first responders' life at risk. And on top of that, I mean, access down there is not easy. I saw the video of you walking. We just talked about how treacherous it is over there, and now we're talking about having to get our first responders over there to attend to emergencies. So it's not something that you want to deal with at all.
And if you want to see the video of me trying to get to this path, and I do apologize for trespassing on your guys' land, but I suppose that kind of is what it is at this point.
So to be fair, I'm sure that was shot prior to our last working group meeting.
Yes.
And at that last working group meeting, the property lines were clarified, as well as CN attended the meeting and gave their statement, which also says that they own the earth under the main line. So there's no high water mark that is public land under their bridge.
Right.
And that's just obviously for them, for the integrity of their bridge and their structures, they have to be able to protect that. And so if you can see dirt under the railroad bridge, that's theirs. It's not anything else. So walking under that bridge is trespassing as well. And so those things I think were not 100% clear until that was cleared up by CN in that last meeting. And I know that video was taped prior to that.
It was, literally 2 or 3 days just before. So.
Yeah. So.
But now you have a
So
statement
I
from
just have a CN statement following our last working group meeting. It's a number of paragraphs, but basically CN is just, to paraphrase the beginning of it, safety is a core value. And then they say, for safety reasons, CN will not accommodate any crossing requests at this location, so by Ashcroft Terminal. We'd like to remind the general public taking a shortcut or crossing rail tracks are illegal and trespassers can be seriously injured or killed. Rail bridges that we were just talking about and structures underneath CN's bridge at the Ashcroft Terminal are part of CN's right-of-way, and accessing this area is illegal. So just to clarify that even under the bridge, that's trespassing.
What are the repercussions? Like if someone now, at this point today, decided to go down there, what would be...
I'm not 100% sure what the dollar value is, but I mean, there is a dollar value attached for fines that CN can issue. And interestingly enough, and I think perhaps because of this slough, like all this talk about the slough, last week we had both CN and CP constables, the police, travel Evans Road and come park at the end of our property. It has become highlighted to them that this is an area, I guess, that people have vocally been saying, like, we're going to cross the tracks, whether it's illegal or not.
Right.
And so I guess their response is, well, we're going to come and check it out. So we have had visits by them.
And if someone were to somehow get past your guys' gate on Evans Road and you come across their car, what would that do? What would the terminal potentially do?
Obviously, we're not looking, we go and we inform people. We don't approach and get angry. We approach and we say, hey, just to let you know you're trespassing. Although I'm sure at this point we have a big gate, we have signs, we have, people know that they're trespassing, but we're still looking to just let them know they're trespassing and have them leave our site. And beyond that, we can't do anything else ourselves, but then there are things that the CN police or RCMP can do that are beyond our control.
Okay. One thing that was, so I have been in talks with the Ashcroft Slough Society, and one thing that they were mentioning was that there's other people's private properties, ranches, so you go
I don't know the exact dates, but many years ago it used to be a ranch.
Okay.
But that property has now changed hands and now is Ashcroft Terminal as you know
Okay.
it. There are no other private properties in our private property, right? So our property is the 320 industrial acres and the 400 agricultural that surround it, and there's nobody else's private property mixed into that.
Okay. On a lighter note, so because I think that pretty much answers everything that I can think of about, other than, sorry, other than talking about the things that the Ashcroft Slough Society wants to build, either over the tracks or under the tracks, that's pretty much irrelevant.
Because CN is not interested in that. That is beyond our, and in the meeting, I felt that CN made it pretty clear. The lady that we had said, like, she's never seen this, and in fact, like, what CN is trying to do is lessen traffic around their main line, and in fact, lessen private crossings.
Right.
So it's not in the way they do business to add private crossings. It's just not. It's irrelevant whether it was by Ashcroft Terminal or anywhere else in the country. This is how the main lines are run. So going over under is not an option for them, and so and coming through our property is not an option, and going through theirs is not an option. So I'm not sure what else to say about that.
If the Ashcroft Slough Society decided to get a lawyer, do some litigation, and try and get something put in there,
Right.
is the terminal and CN prepared to do a legal battle, as it were? Like, I don't know how far it would go.
Yeah,
or what.
I don't know what exactly the Slough Society is planning to do. I mean, right now we're just getting the message out there. We're communicating. We're trying to get the facts straight for everybody, and that's what Ashcroft Terminal and CN, that's what we're doing right now.
Awesome. Is there anything else that you would like to say about this?
I guess just for me personally, I'm in an interesting position. I'm here talking about Ashcroft Terminal. Obviously, the slough is a hot topic, but I'm also a member of the community. I've lived here for over 10 years, and 7 of them have been working with Ashcroft Terminal, and I'm really proud of both. I'm very invested in the community. I have kids that are going to the school here. I volunteer. My husband volunteers in the community, and I'm also extremely proud of the work that Ashcroft Terminal is doing. And I think that we are seeing Ashcroft Terminal, just with our growth, being able to be more visible in the community and give back and be a part of a lot more things. And I think that that's really exciting. And so I think people should be looking forward to lots of great things.
Awesome. Is there anything that the terminal is actually a part of right now?
So just recently, we have had a couple of, we're partaking with soups on.
Okay.
We've done 2 so far. We have done some, we just had some great applicants and scholarships being given out with the school. And in fact, we actually hired one of the students that received one of our scholarships. We hired him for the summer.
Awesome.
And he's been fantastic. Really excited that we supported him and also being able to give him some work experience before he heads off to, heavy-duty mechanic course in October here coming up. And then, there'll be lots of other things going on. We were doing free skates, we did free swims. We just, over the weekend, went up and supported the Smile campaign at Tim Hortons, which was really exciting. So, yeah, it's you'll start to see us around more. And hopefully, people will better appreciate the work that we're doing here in Ashcroft. And that the people we have here working for us are also members of this community. We've been able to have people, move back home to live here and work here that were living elsewhere just because they had no opportunity to have good paying jobs.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
Yes.
I really appreciate that. I'm glad we had an opportunity to hopefully answer some questions and clear some air for people. And yeah, so that's great. And
Awesome.
So thank you very much. And to everybody at home, hopefully that answers some questions for you. And we'll see you next time. So Patty walked out of the studio, got to her car, forgot that she had the microphone on, came back into the building, and then realized that there was another topic that we had to talk about. So, Patty, what else do you have?
Yes, thank you. It dawned on me as I walked out of the room that, which is extremely important, what we pretty much have been talking about this whole time, is rail safety. And in fact, this week is Rail Safety Week. So I've noticed that the village has had things posted, things that are going on. Both CP and CN obviously have campaigns running. And also Ashcroft Terminal, if you follow us on Facebook or any social media, we do have posts talking about rail safety. Also, a lot of the material, if you want to just check it out, Operation Lifesaver, it's just a great source for information, has fun drawings that kids can color. rail facts and safety facts and all that kind of stuff. So check it out. Yeah.
Awesome. And that's it.
That's it.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks.